Welcome to the Hello Hornets podcast, an official podcast of the Mansfield Public Schools. In this episode, we speak with Julia Greenstine, the district's Director of Digital Learning. Julia speaks about her role and the role of her department, including how they quickly adapted at the start of the pandemic to make sure teachers, staff, and families had the technology and training they needed to succeed. She also discusses how New England schools differ from her previous district in North Carolina and what makes Mansfield in particular such a special place for education. You can listen to all the episodes in the series by visiting mansfieldschoolnews.com/podcast or by following the Mansfield Public Schools on Facebook or Twitter. Julia, thank you for being here today. Do you want to start by telling everyone what your role is in the district and how long you've been here?
Sure. I'm Director of Digital Learning, and I am starting my 4th year here in Mansfield.
Where were you before you came to Mansfield, and what were the differences between your last position in here?
So before I came to Mansfield, or before I came to Massachusetts, I was in North Carolina. I worked with a district. Most of our districts in North Carolina are quite large. They're county-based districts. So my last one was 124 schools and 72,000 children. So as you can imagine, it was quite the shock to move to Massachusetts, where we are more town-based and the districts are smaller. So it's definitely a lot different. Things are very grassroots here, but it is absolutely fabulous. I have really learned to like small districts and the way that our teachers really have a tremendous amount of voice here. And Mansfield itself is so special. The team that we work with is wonderful. The leadership team is certainly second to none. And I have really enjoyed my time here and all that I've gotten to learn.
And can you sort of expand a little bit on, what your role is and what the department does?
Sure. I'm Director of Digital Learning here, and so we are kind of in a unique spot. Digital learning means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. For us here in Mansfield, we work directly as a function of curriculum. So we're not the ones actually doing the wires and the flyers. We work directly with teachers and with students to integrate technology into curriculum in a meaningful way that kind of increases student voice, that increases student engagement, and hopefully increases student outcomes.
And anytime you deal with anything having to do with technology, obviously things are always changing and always advancing. So how do you stay up to date with the most up-to-date trends in the technology world?
So for educational technology, I think it's not necessarily always chasing the latest and greatest. I think it's really what's going to serve our teachers and our students the best in our population. So I think for us, we are a Google district. So I'm a Google certified trainer, so is one of our coaches. Our newest coach is also Google certified. So we stay up to date with Google in that way. But then I think we also work with MassQ, we work with ISTE, so some local and some national organizations that will help us to find kind of the tools of the trade that best fit the needs we have here in Mansfield.
And how many people are in the department, and what are their sort of different roles that they have?
There are 3 of us total, so we also have 2 instructional technology coaches, Kevin Smith, and we just added a new coach this summer, Caitlin Paluski. So Kevin and Kaylin work directly with teachers. It is a K-12 role, but Kevin does work primarily with our secondary, and Kaylin will be working with our elementary schools.
And what are some of the ways that you can track the successes of what you do, and how do you evaluate the specific impacts that you have?
So there's several different ways you can do that. We're involved with data and assessment, and we are actually in the process of implementing a data and assessment system. So, you can always track by the numbers, but then you can also track through some informal data and some narrative data where we work directly with our teachers in the classroom. One of the things that we do is we co-teach. So we actually go in and design lessons with teachers, and then we go in and teach them. So we get to see firsthand kind of the fruits of our work and how well it goes with our student population. So we hear from them kind of what they're excited about, what helps, but then we can also, like I said, look at the assessment data and kind of know how we're doing.
Can you talk a little bit about the district as a whole and how they support your mission and support what you do?
So I often joke, I said, with the closures that have gone on in the last year, we had a great 3-year technology plan that got accomplished in about 10 days. We went one-to-one very quickly to support our families and our students. And so I think for us, what we've been able to do is really put the technology in the hands quickly. But we also have to be able to use that technology. That's where we come in. We're the next step of being able to use it effectively, and be able to continue to meet the needs as we go forward.
As the pandemic progressed, were there things that you were surprised about in terms of the way that people were able to pick up with things, or things that people struggled with that you were able to help them with? How did that whole process go?
Well, our staff is truly incredible. I've never experienced anything like what I experienced here. Between March and June, when we started the closure, we put on a little over 150 virtual PD sessions. Our staff registrants were over 2,500 for those sessions, and we didn't require any of them. Our staff very much came forward. They wanted to learn. They wanted to learn as quickly as possible. They were just truly incredible. And the group of professionals that they are, in some ways you go, it's surprising, but in other ways, knowing these people, it is not. Mm-hmm. They do whatever needs to be done in order to really forward learning and really do what's best for kids.
How do you sort of balance some of the staff who might be more tech savvy and more interested versus some who, through no fault of their own, might not be as familiar? How do you balance that spectrum of staff?
We do a lot of coaching on top of PD. We do a lot of PD sessions that are designed for an advanced learner. We might tag something as foundational. Teachers always decide where they are, because the fact of the matter is you could be foundational in one set of skills, but you might not be in another. So we try to meet the needs that way. But then we also go through and we do coaching, individual or small group, to really meet the needs of our staff exactly where they are.
So this year, obviously, COVID hasn't gone away, but things are starting to trend more towards the normal model. How have you been approaching this year, with some things still up in the air, but also with having a plan going forward? How have you been approaching this school year that's just started?
I think for us, it's really being prepared to pivot. Mm-hmm. So we want to be sure that, we are doing the things we would normally do to prep for a school year, but we know the unexpected can happen. So we want to be sure that we have the pieces in place, that should we need to pivot, we're able to and we're prepared to do it. So we've really been setting up PD sessions. We've been working with our administrative staff in the buildings to kind of make sure that we've got everything in place that their staff needs to be able to move forward for today, but also to be prepared if something happens.
And what would you say your expectations are for this year, and what your hopes for this year are?
I'm really excited about this year. We have so many great things happening all at once. I think I mentioned earlier, we have a data and assessment system that I think is going to be very positive for our district. We've been doing a lot with data for the past few years, but we've never had one system to house all of our data, so that we're able to kind of have all that flow to the same spot. We're able to get data back in the hands of teachers quickly and in usable forms, so that it's really able to impact what's happening in the classroom instructionally. So I'm really excited to be getting that project off the ground.
Great. Well, best of luck this year. And is there anything, one last thing that you would want either students or parents or members of the school community to know about your department and moving forward?
Sure. We're here to help. So we also have a website that we actually developed last year for students and families that kind of had a lot of how-tos and tutorials on everything from the basics of Google, how to use the Chromebook, to some troubleshooting for when things don't go quite right. So that is always available 24/7 for anyone who needs it. So we want to be sure that they know that they do have support out there, but then we can always be reached by email as well.
And if people want to access that website or have an email, where would they go to that?
It is on the district website, and it is under the Parents and Students tab.
Well, thank you so much, and best of luck this year.
Thank you so much.